Coming up next on the option block, we talk pandemic-inspired sell-offs that really weren't. Look at some earnings-related paper and big names like Intel and others. We look ahead for some macro-inspired terror, and Uncle Mike even talks some pot stocks. Got to hear that one to believe it. It's all coming up next on the option block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody, that rockin' bit of tunage means it is time once again to rock out with your old crew here on the option block. My name is Mark Longo. I'll be your tour guide through this approximately 1 hour. Not a 3-hour tour here, a 1 hour tour. So you get more after. So it's going to be approximately 2.5, I guess, if you add it all together. But on this show, it's just an hour. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting The Options Insider Radio Network. Keep all that insight, the feedback, your questions, your comments. Keep it all coming. We love to hear from you guys. You guys are the engine that drives the ship at the end of the day. And joining me, as not quite a co-captain, bit of the Gilligan to my skipper, he is the Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com by way of Carmen Lion Capital. Mr. G, welcome back to the program. Should I call you, G, GIOVINAZZI, G, Gilligan? There's a certain resonance there, sir.
Well, it's tough when you work for a meatball. And now I'm Gilligan, so I guess I can only go up in this world. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
Could have been worse. I could have said like Mary Ann or something, right? So it could have been
that's
the professor's wife. There's a lot of ways we could go. Ancillary characters that no one really cares about. But instead, you got Gilligan. He's ostensibly the star of the show. So there you go. You got boosted up to the main seat. And also joining us, let's see where he's beaming in from today. Parts unknown, maybe his palatial estate in St. Charles. We'll find out. He is Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. To you as well, sir.
Well, I'm always broadcasting from parts unknown, just in the spirit of the 80s wrestler, The Missing Link, or all the good ones then. But, it's funny you mentioned Gilligan's Island. So my dream retirement job, what I want to do is there's these tour boats that go around the Fox River in St. Charles, the Fox River Queen and the St. Charles Belle. And my dream job is I want to be the skipper on on one of those boats, because I think that would be the coolest job, to get paid to drive your boat up and down the river and just tell people useless facts. Yes, in 1897, this tree did this, that. Yeah, I would love it. I can't wait to be the skipper someday. That's my goal.
There you go. Pays to dream, and it pays for us to keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. Let's get into the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading. Another mixed down start here to the week. Markets taking a bit of a hiatus here to kick off this third or so week, trading week of the new year and indeed the new decade. Most of the major indices in the green, in the red, but not really heavily in the red. We've got S&P once again playing the Goldilocks, down about 1/3%. Dow threatening 0.5%. So that's starting to get a little serious out there. NASDAQ off about 0.2%. Mixed bag on the commodity front as well. WTI shy of 55, 54.98. Some pretty low levels out there. Some interesting levels too. Also, we'll get into all that and a lot more in a little over an hour there on TWIFO, the risk premium and WTI. What's it really telling us? Is it too low? A lot of good stuff to get into on WTI. I have a good guest to do that as well, so stay tuned for that in about an hour and a half. And, of course, gold ticking up a little bit, up about 10 handles, still shy of that 1,600 level, though, about 1,567 or so out there. And our old friend VIX Cash hovering right around the 13.5 level. That puts it up about 1 1/3 or so handles from where it was this time last show, so substantially elevated compared to last show. Not exactly heading the way of my prognostication for the end of the week. By the way, I need to start tracking all those again for this year. Mark it off with my beautiful 0.01 or so away bullseye from last Friday. That should get me many bonus points here to kick off the year. But about 13.5 in VIX Cash. Our old friend VVIX, a little bit shy of 94, about 93.65 or so. It puts it up over 3 points, about 3 1/3 points from our last show. And VXX also having the temerity to tick up to 13.75. So it did break through that 14 handle, and stayed shy of that 14 handle. So all those folks who were piling in on those Jan 14 puts, they could at least have a smile on their face through expiration here. But not so much today, up about 1/3 of a point. But again, those puts are off the table, so you snuck in right under your nose there on the right after expiration out here. 13.75 for VXX. Let's go back around the horn. Let's go back around the way we came. Let's start with the Rock Lobster. Sir, you guys have been lighting it up out there. You're going crazy. Webinars, smart bets, all this crazy stuff. So what's been lighting it up in the big brouhaha that is Option Pit these days, sir?
Geez Louise. Looking at, I guess the thing is, okay, market up, all-time highs, vol can't go down, and it's it's kind of weird. You got a city with 11 million people just been quarantined in China, so you got that going. So it feels it's just kind of one of those oddball market days. I have to, Boeing's popular stuff in our Boeing trying to work into a bounce at this level after the news yesterday. Also, trying to figure out what to do with Tesla. When does it go back to $500? Literally stuff like that. Also setting up for SPX to kind of continue its run, to be honest. So those are the prevailing ideas that we are at Option Pit. From a vol point of view, I got to sell some put spreads in the SPY this morning, but literally like all sell-offs, we get down maybe 1.5 handles or something like that in the SPY, and it stops. It's just there is no energy to sell this market. The other thing that we've been noticed that's not been great for me has been oil. I actually had to buy some puts yesterday because I hit literally every danger Will Robinson area for my. I started dabbling in some of the oil stocks in the fourth quarter, mostly selling put spreads and buying some calls and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, I'd be really clever, and this is, got to be nearing the bottom, but no. So I did buy some midterm puts just to stop everything. If everything bounces up, I still should make a little money, but if we keep going down, I don't want to lose any more money. So that's a second thing. And usually, historically, this kind of virusy stuff not good for oil in the headlines because of people traveling less, maybe less jet travel, stuff like that. So like airlines, oils, things like that. Generally, it's not super great for just on a headline basis, although the airlines aren't moving a ton. So I'm looking at stuff like that. But, I mean, you have to be realistic. VIX itself, like vol moving up, just a little bit, a little more than 50 basis points. Vol futures basically absorbing the move. And as we go to the show today, I'll take a look. And basically, that Feb March is still kind of there. The spread is pretty tight still. And it's stuck in that range. But as far as like VIX, basically the futures have been elevated, like we've talked about last week for a while, and they're absorbing just the move and vol. So this is what I would call, this is usually where things sort of inflect, right? Where, VIX cash moves up, it's absorbed mostly by all the futures, and then from here, what do? We either market, goes back on its merry way up, or we actually start to pitch off the cliff a little bit. We're kind of like right there. So that, again, that's a pit crazy pit chat discussion. So anyway, my ideas are long puts in the SPX and then long some call time spreads, somewhere upside. Because I just think the upside momentum is kind of muted, but if we have that quickie scare down, the puts will be an easy close. So those are the types of trades that we're discussing in our pro chat room. But on that, it's a little bit blasé of a day as far as action goes, like broad market action. Sort of like market down a little bit, and we just, we can't pitch any lower because there's no more really bad news. So it kind of stops everything here. But that's what's happening in the pit today, and in at least the pit chat today.
Now, how crazy is that? You mentioned all these coronavirus fears, and that's clearly one of the things that is weighing on the market today, and we'll get into all that and maybe what that means for global crude demand in a bit, because that's obviously weighing on WTI a little bit later there on TWIFO. But just think about that for a second. China is effectively quarantining several major cities of roughly 20 million people, just effectively just taken off the grid. You guys are isolated now. Imagine something like that happen here in the U.S., where effectively the government say, Chicago, and all your environs, you're all quarantined. No one can go in or out of, let's say, Illinois for the next week or two. Imagine the hue and cry that would result. But in China, it's I guess we're seeing, when it comes to fighting disease, maybe this is the upside of an autocracy over there. They can just shut things down. And public transit, all these things, these people are effectively locked in these cities. It's an unprecedented, as far in the modern era, move, and yet not a lot of uproar about it, which is somewhat fascinating in and of itself. Let's move on to the land of St. Charles, where no one ever gets quarantined because it's just a happy-go-lucky place. Uncle Mike, sir, what is lighting up your tape today?
Never before in the history of January have I opened up a segment and not set an all-time high. Today is the big day for that. But you guys were wondering where I was going with that.
I was going to say, wait a minute, did I miss a high somewhere? What's going on?
So today, we got a little bit of a pullback today, and it's funny. So I'm just so I volunteer with the games at church on Wednesday nights, and so I'm just talking to some of the other guys, and they're like, "Whoa, this market tanked today." And I'm thinking, okay, we and this was yesterday. I'm like, well, we made all-time highs in the morning, and yeah, it did come back down, but even today, we're still 1% off the all-time highs. So I would say, you're in a bull market when people who generally don't follow the markets very closely think the market tanks when it goes down just a little bit off of the all-time highs. So I thought that was entertaining. But anyway, yeah, I think what's happening today, we're just getting a little bit of a pullback. Some people are blaming it on impeachment. Some people are blaming it on various things. But here's the bottom line as to what all pullbacks are. I'll state the obvious to start with. There's more sellers than there are buyers. And when we get these little pullbacks as the market's going up just in very rapidly like it has been, a lot of times this can be buying opportunities. It just kind of depends on what your point of view is and where you are with your own financial objectives. Of course, bonds are increasing in value today as kind of a flight to safety. Commodities are rather mixed, with silver being flat on the day or relatively flat on the day. The thing that I'm noticing right now is in the sectors, the financials. The financials have really not moved that much this year. And just seeing where they are and where they could have been, this rally has definitely not been led by financials. So what I think is interesting is that at some stage, if money does start coming into the market, financials could be a leader to this based on what happens with the rest of any earnings, as well as just where the rich people want to put their money that they put back into the market that they took off today. So I really believe that today is just more along the lines of a small little pullback for where we're going.
Let's see, where are we going today? Let's look at the broad markets out there, the broad indices, see what's lighting it up. A decent paper day, all things considered. Nothing blowing the doors off, but not exactly 50 contracts across the board either. Let's start in VIX land. Almost 350,000 contracts on the tape as of a few minutes ago. That's closing in on the ADV out there. The ADV, which has continued to erode down to 375,000 contracts right now. So we're still kind of in that seasonally weak time frame here. End of the year, beginning of the year, not exactly usually robust times for all things VIX. Take the Febocalypse out of that data when you're analyzing that. So we're in kind of a quiet time frame, but the numbers here looking pretty strong, probably going to blow past that ADV today. I guess these coronavirus fears driving a little bit of wallpaper. Go figure. SPY doing decent paper, not quite as robust as VIX, at about 1.5, a little bit north of that million contracts right now. The ADV is a little bit shy of 3 million out there, about 2.7 million, so right around half of their ADV. The S doing similar paper, about 670,000 contracts. The ADV about 1.2 million, so also right around half of its ADV out there. The Q's closing in on 500,000 contracts. The ADV, 650. So the NASDAQ feeling some thunder out there. The Russell, not quite so much. IWM doing 175,000 contracts. The ADV, 306 out there right now. Let's move on to the most active individual equity options, the ones you guys like to sling back and forth all day long. Number 10, haven't seen this one in the top 10 in a while. We got GE. $1.22 is what it cost you to break into the top 10 today. Number 9, LK. This is Luckin or maybe Lukin Coffee. This is, of course, the Chinese Starbucks competitor out there. This is the first time we've seen them in the top 10, so kind of interesting. They IPO'd early to middle of last year. I haven't really seen a lot of options paper out of them, but today, seeing a little bit of fire. 133,000 contracts out there. Let's just glance really quickly. And it's mostly puts, 63% of that on the put side, which is interesting. You don't see a lot of put bias paper in the top 10 too often. Number 8, AMD, 136,000 contracts. Number 7, good old Boeing, our friends across the street, 143,000 contracts. Number 6, another BA name, Baba, 170,000 contracts. Bit of a theme going on here. Numbers 5, NEO. A theme of geographically located names in the top 10 here. I'll let you guess where that geographic region is. Number 5, NEO, 188,000 contracts. Number 4, Intel, popping off after the bell today, 265,000 contracts. Number 3, our old friend Apple, bounced all the way down to number 3. Oh, the temerity of them, 321,000 contracts on the tape. Number 2, Netflix, spooking, surprising, maybe not exactly surprising a lot of people with the fact that, hey, a lot of competition out there in the streaming media space right now, and that's weighing on Netflix a little bit, weighing on their numbers, not weighing on their options volume, though. 352,000 contracts on the tape, and number 1 with a bullet yet again. Seems to have wrested the top spot from Apple, at least for the time being. This is Tesla, closing in on 400,000 contracts, 396 as of a few minutes ago. Let's look at the bias paper. We mentioned the put biases out there in LK. Let's see if there's some other stark biases we could find out here. Looks like the biggest one is Netflix. 65% of the paper biased to the call side of the ledger. Speaking of Netflix and those names, obviously we're back in it, back in the teeth of earnings season. On Tuesday, we saw Netflix United Airlines, TD Ameritrade, soon to be part of the Schwab empire, apparently. Wednesday, our friends over there at Ally on OPR show there, Northern Trust as well, and Raymond James. So a lot of financials popping off this week. And then American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, JetBlue, all popping off today. So that's going to give you a nice taste for the airline sector. P&G before the bell today. We've got E-Trade and Intel, my old stomping grounds, after the bell today, hence all that paper out there. And Intel, by the way, if you like yourself a little bit of earnings move results before it is peak season once again over there in ORAT's land, and they're cranking us a lot of great reports you guys can access, courtesy, of course, of the optionsinsider.com. Let's just pick a name out of the hat here from the latest earning movies. Oh, these are the results reports here as well. So we have, let's go with JetBlue, because they popped off before the bell today. This is the results report. Again, you guys can access all this for yourself over there, theoptionsinsider.com. JetBlue, at the time of this report, the stock closed at $19.80 going into the announcement, and in the time of this report was at about 20.5, so about 70 cent increase there. Let's see. The market was expecting a 0.8% move, so it wasn't really expecting a big move out there from an earnings perspective. It actually delivered nearly 4%, so outperforming there on the straddle front, which is kind of interesting. Let's just see if I can find any other. Love, here we go, a.k.a. Southwest Airlines, also in this report. They closed at about 53.5, and at the time of this report, which was obviously right before the bell here this morning, about 54.70. So a nice little bump of about $1.20 out there as well. They were expecting 1.8% move, and they got a little over 2, about 2.2%. So outperforming there as well. Maybe a bit of a theme. Airlines outperforming when it comes to their earnings straddle. Check out that report. There's a lot of names out there you guys can sink your teeth into. And the best part about it, it's all free. So theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go for all that good earnings volatility data. Meanwhile, though, we have to keep on rolling. It is time to get weird. It is time to get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. Let's see where our Eye of Sauron is bringing us today here in the Odd Block. Let's spin the old wheel. Oh, first up, a name that is deeply familiar to me, my old stomping grounds, good old Intel. I wonder why they're popping off here on the Odd Block. Let's see what we got. Intel, of course, INTC. For those of you who don't trade it, right around 63.5 right now, puts it up about 75 cents or a little over 1%. So far here today, so a nice little rally here to kick things off. They have earnings after the bell, I should point out, so they haven't reported yet. And let's look back at them over the course of the past year. Like a lot of names, they've had a decent year, even though it's kind of been a few peaks and valleys along the way. It hasn't been a steady, straight move to the upside. There's been some hiccups along the way. A year ago, it was trading about $48, so well shy of where it is right now. And it rallied all the way up to not that far from where it is right now, about $59, close to it in April. And then it kind of just fell off a cliff. I'm guessing earnings not too good around that time frame. So it's 58, almost $59, April 22nd. By a little bit later, by like early May, it was trading 44. So it sold off pretty hard there. And then it kind of rallied again to about 53 in mid to late July, and then sold off again. This kind of looks like a bit of a tame biotech, but a lot of peaks and troughs over the course of the year. Then down to 45 again in August, then slowly rallying again up to 58 again, and by November, then selling off down to 56 again, then back up to where it is right now, which is at the upper end of that 52-week band, pretty much at its 52-week high right now. So let's see what we got going on out here. At the 52-week high, earnings lighting it up after the bell. I'm going to go out on a limb and say our Eye of Sauron perhaps has found us some call paper. Let's see if that is the case. Yes. It is. It's like I've done this before or something. Looks like we got in particular, some earnings call paloozas, maybe some call love. Let's find out. In particular, we saw a big print, nearly 13,000, 12,778 to be precise, of the June. That's interesting. June 70 calls. So not front month, not a month or two out to June. That's kind of interesting. Going up for $1.60 also, so kind of meaty. So June 70, remember I said we're at about 63.5 right now in the stock, so decently out of the money, decently down the way a little bit. Calls. These things were $1.51 at $1.63 when these went up over there on the Philly. These were opening. Again, they have earnings after the bell. This guy didn't stop here, though. The total of nearly 43,000 going up on the tape when our Eye of Sauron first found this for us. So big print of about 13,000, but another 30,000 following that. So someone, Mr. Rock Lobster, liking himself a little earnings call. A lot to unpack here. These are standard buying calls on earnings day. I get it, but usually when we see that, we see it a lot closer to home. We don't see people going out to June. So what are your thoughts here on these pretty sizable, pretty far out Intel earnings day call palooza, sir?
Kind of exciting. I hope they're right. Intel is one of my largest holdings, mostly to me like a dividend stock. Like I use a lot of these kind of old tech names for like a CD instead of a CD. Probably a little riskier than it should be, but hey, when they were yielding 3% or whatever, it was pretty cool.
This stock chart is not the chart of a CD, sir.
It is not, and it's kind of, it makes me a little nervous, but my entry point is not kind of an issue anymore. It's long since I'm on record on the show of liking like the Q stocks and that old technology for quite a while, so it shouldn't surprise listeners too much. I'm trying to think of the last time Intel was in the 60s. I can't remember. Maybe 2000, I think. It's one of these things where Intel, the story is Intel really doesn't have traded much of a multiple, right? So Apple went from literally the earnings didn't change all last year. If anything, they went down, and everybody decided at once to go from like a 10 multiple to a 20, PE on it. I don't know who gave that signal, but they did. Intel could be another one. I would say though, ball for Intel usually is in the teens. These are pretty expensive calls for Intel, relative, and it looks like they're mostly buyers of them. At least the way the pricing went up looked like to me. So I think they're actually kind of expensive for Intel because it kind of is like sort of a plotty stock, but it hasn't been lately. So, but like tell to give me any, the top 10 Q stocks. So, the only thing I would say is, to me, these calls look expensive. I hope they're right. I think it would probably make a better buy right, to be honest.
Yeah, that was my takeaway as well. I spent a lot of time trading calls at Intel. In fact, the last time it traded in the 60s was back when I was out there around March of 2000. So yeah, it's been a while since it's revisited. I thought this level sounded familiar to me. And you're right. Yeah. It takes a lot to buying calls in Intel to really work in your favor. As a guy who had to choke on a ton of them because every freaking big fund on the planet dumped them to me all day. It's a challenge to make long calls work. So that was my first blush when I saw this. I was like, wow, these are pricey. And it's a bit of an aggressive road to hoe there for Intel. So I'm going to put these in the to be watched category. I'm with you. I hope this guy's right. I would definitely much rather be on the buy right side of this than buying these. But hey, someone likes them to the tune of 43,000 today. So that in and of itself perhaps merits further watching. We may know soon. We may know after the bell today whether this guy is completely insane. If Intel's back testing the 50 levels again, this guy may look like a nut job or perhaps a genius. I'll probably hold off on that latter portion, but we shall see. Next up, this is interesting, actually. This is not a newcomer to the network. In fact, we talk about them every week. We talk to them usually every week. We're going to talk about them again in about an hour or so on the Twifo show. Haven't really ever, I don't think, discussed them in the Odd Block. This is CME. Our friends across the street, actually friends on both sides of the street here. They flank our studio here with multiple buildings. But CME getting some action here on the Odd Block today. Ticker symbol, of course, CME. Trading right now almost 208, about 207.75 or so, up about 30 cents. So it's not today's move that's really lighting things up. Let's go back over the course of the past year. Been a pretty decent year for all things CME. A year ago was trading about 20 handles lower, 187. Sold off down in March, actually down to about 162, 163. So had a bit of a drubbing to start the year. Then it pretty much turned right around and rallied from there. By September, it was trading 221 again. And then it kind of sold off again, got clipped pretty good in September. Right after that, hit 221, then sold off to almost 201, almost instantly within a week. So gave up about 20 handles there. Then it seems like it's kind of vacillated in this low 200 range pretty much ever since. Broke through 200 a couple of times to the downside, but not too much. And right now at about 207, threatening 208 here to the upside. So where we find ourselves in CME right now. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found today for us. Interesting. This is long-term, looks like some put love out here to the tune of the Jan 2021, obviously, because regular Jan already off the board here. So Jan 2021, 130 puts. So fairly, shall we say, out of the money puts. I'm guessing this is a longer-term underlying holder deciding to perhaps hedge where he got in. Doing it about 6,500 times for nearly $2, $1.90 this guy's paying. So he's pretty much lifting the offer. These things were, as you might expect, pretty wide. There were 75 cents at $1.95. So that's an impressively wide market on these. He paid $1.90, about 6,500 times for these. This is opening, obviously. There are earnings coming up in February, but that's not what this guy's worried about. This guy's going out a whole year. This one, there's a lot, I think, to be head-scratched about this one, Mr. Rock Lobster. First off, if you are, let's say theoretically you are long from the 130 level, are you going to buy the 130 puts for $2? Or maybe you get a little bit more nuance. God forbid you do a spread a little bit more in the money and then you hedge down to that level. And maybe you have a similar outlay, but you get more effective hedging. I don't know. Call me crazy. What do you think about this guy shelling out all the money for puts that are not quite 100 handles out of the money, but pretty darn close, sir?
It is an interesting use of capital.
That's a damning with faint praise, sir.
So I think this type of trade is, you remember, and I know this sounds like a million years ago, but you remember a segment on this show for at least a year and a half where we go, the Tesla par puts, where are they trading now?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And remember, they were like buying at 80, 90 cents, $1, whatever. And then Tesla had that scare and went down to 180, and the vol blew up in those puts.
Yeah, they quadrupled.
They got to like $3.50.
Yeah.
And I don't remember people, the owners selling a ton of them there when they got the pop. To me, so I look at this as, so if you're trading this as an option, if you were buying these when you're a floor trade, you're basically buying Vega, right? You're probably not going to get down there, but you are just buying some cheap Vega in the name, or maybe cheap Vega you think it is, with a year out, and you're buying vol basically as an asset at that point. So for the listeners out there, you buy options like that, and the stock's down maybe 20 or $30 and vol goes up, maybe VIX goes to 25 between now and then. Those puts don't lose a ton of their value even 3, 4, 5 months down the road. They're going to lose some money. I don't know, unless CME goes up $300. But I think it's like a potential like Vega play. That's how I would see that. I don't see how that put hedges anything unless whoever bought them just sold, a much meatier contract over the counter or something like that. Or they're worried about the CME, like having a problem in a market correction, and they got all, maybe the Bitcoin options blow up. Who the hell knows, right? But to me, that I look at that as I really don't look at it as buying put play. To me, it's like a Vega play. They're trying to just buy some options that aren't really going to decay. They don't work close to the money, and maybe they double or triple if the vol blows up, and then they can make a little money on them. But unless there's something against it that we don't see, it's definitely it's a bit of a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher. This is longer term. I'm not going to put this in our to be watched category. I'll put the Intel in there because they're a little bit closer to actually paying off, and we might know very soon whether those are a good trade or not. These are just boring and for the most part probably a waste of capital. Maybe not, but this to me reads of someone who read the old stock book and says, and the option book and said, I'm in for this level, I should probably hedge right there. And is willing to put a lot of money where his mouth is on that one. Let's move on and see what our final name is today. What did our Eye of Sauron kick out for us? If that's too rich for your blood, $130 or even $60 with Intel, we got you covered with a cheapie here to end this up. This is DHT Holdings. That stands for Double Hull Tankers. I do believe this might be a newcomer on the iBlock. We shall see. This is obviously a shipping container company here. Ticker symbol DHT. Trading today $6.99, off about 20 cents. So in the much cheaper realm than our previous contestants here. Looking back a year ago, this thing was trading $4.32 a year ago, so it had a nice little run here. It peaked out at about $8.83 back in, not too long ago, back in early January, so earlier this year, before it looks like selling off a little bit here over the course of the past month, down to shy of the 7 handle now. So maybe not exactly been the best, good year, not exactly the best month here for DHT. Let's see what we got here. What did our Eye of Sauron find us? Going out to March, these are the March 8 calls. 6,000 lot going up for 43 cents. This is through the offer. These things were surprisingly tight. These were 35 cents at 40. I'm guessing maybe something was lurking in the book to make that artificially tight. Either way, it wasn't the real market because it went up for 43 cents 6,000 times. A total of 13,000 going up on the day. So somebody really had an axe to grind here and wanted to gobble these bad boys up. Someone saying, hey, how do I get 13,000 done? Okay, you got to pay through the offer 3 cents to get those done. Worth noting, there is earnings in this cycle. It's on February 5th, so a bit of an earnings play here as well. This is kind of interesting one. This is fairly aggressive, Mr. Rock Lobster, because they aren't too long-term, and they are fairly out of the money, especially given the recent sell-off. They were in the money a few weeks ago, and now they are substantially out of the money. So this guy needs a bit of a move for these bad boys to pay off, and also he's got some size. He's done about 13,000 of these bad boys so far, so someone putting his money where his mouth is. Mr. Rock Lobster, kind of an old school, maybe a bit of a swing for the fences here in the odd block for your favorite name, Double Hull Tankers Inc., sir.
Is this one of those like dry ships, Baltic Index?
If it was dry ships, it would go from 7 to like 300. That's what it would do.
I just remember all the squeeze on these. Like these used to be a trade and a play and so I think the Baltic Dry Index, that number, the shipping costs are going down. I'm just looking at this as like somebody's trying to look for a bounce or a squeeze or something at some point. And it could happen. Not an unreasonable price to pay for these options. But they're, it's vol's going up, waiting for earnings to come out. So it's, there's, I could say, it could be a potential payout for sure. It's not an unreasonable trade. Let's put it that way for the price.
Well, I'll tell you what, we shall put that. We keep cleaning out our to be watched. We keep adding more. We'll watch these guys as well, see if this mega DHT call love pays off. Meanwhile, we didn't get a chance to do a show on Monday, so I know he's champing at the bit. So without further ado, let's get to a little bit of a special Thursday edition of the Strategy Block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, welcome to the Strategy Block. I know you're probably throwing off because it's Thursday. Uncle Mike clearly is throwing off, not doing his normal Monday Strategy Block, doing it on Thursday instead. Because Uncle Mike, I got a little birdie whispering in my ear, telling me You want to talk about cannabis stocks? Can this possibly be correct, sir?
The bird must have been flying high.
Oh, look at you. Marijuana puns. What have you done with Uncle Mike, sir?
Good stuff. So I've been getting some questions lately from clients and just people in general about some thoughts on marijuana stocks. In Illinois, our home state, it did become legal at the new year. And there's just a lot of people that are buying a lot of pot legally around here in Illinois. And so I want to give my take on it as an investor. Now, first off, full disclosure, I am morally opposed to it being legal. I don't believe it should be. But I want to put that aside for a moment just because of the fact that I want to give everyone just kind of a clear reason as to my thoughts on it. So the first thing that I'd like to say, and I just want to do a poll of my fellow hosts here, my fellow co-hosts here, can either of you two name, without cheating and looking on Google, the largest radish supplier in the country?
I think I'm fairly well equipped to say I cannot, sir.
Oh, okay. Exactly. And neither can I. And so the reason that I bring that up is that marijuana is oftentimes something that, look at all the demand for it. Look at all the demand for it. But let's look at this for the long term in terms of what's going to happen with it. Once again, not from is it good or bad for society. I'm not here to talk about that for today. I'm just talking about the common sense reasons with which I think it could be what it would be. And ultimately, I do think it is a bad idea as an investment long term, unless you can find the one company that's going to be the great distributor of it, that's going to be equivalent to America's leading radish supplier, whatever one that may be. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's first talk about it from the standpoint of medical use. From the standpoint of medical use, let's say that all the studies out there that the marijuana is just this wonderful wonder drug. It does all these wonderful things for medicine. Okay, let's put it in the medicine category or put it in the drug category. Should we do that? Let's look at how drugs make money in America. Well, what they do is they get something FDA approved, and they figure out a way to make a mixture of chemicals for a smaller amount of money, and they charge insanely high amounts for it, and that's how drug companies make money. Right or wrong, that's just the facts as to how it is. Now, with that being said, and I don't want to go back to my rant on the EpiPen like I did a couple years ago, so if you want to hear one of my classic rants, just search for my EpiPen rant in one of our classic shows from a couple hundred episodes ago. But anyway, with that, let's say that marijuana, it finds that it does all these wonderful things that all the potheads say it does for curing things. Okay, that's fine. Should that be the case, a company, let's say that they do charge a large amount of money for marijuana. If I'm the patient, I'm not going to buy my marijuana from the drug company if I can't afford it. And I'm not going to go through insurance if I can't afford such a thing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to call up my local drug dealing buddy, find him on the street, wherever, and I'm just going to buy my marijuana from that person. Reason being, it's something that's a commodity, kind of like radishes are. And so for that purpose, I don't think as an investment it would be good from the standpoint of a medical type of thing, from the standpoint of an investment. Now, let's talk about how it could be an investment from the standpoint of recreational use. So with that being said, I'm just relying on my doctorate from USC. I do have a doctorate from USC, not University of Southern California, the University of Street Smarts and Common Sense. This is my doctorate from USC talking here. People that bought marijuana legally in the last couple of weeks in Illinois, it's very likely that they've smoked it or eaten it or whatever illegally at some other point in time in their life. And it's also very likely that they know someone who deals marijuana illegally at some point in their life. Once again, I don't have any numbers to back this up. I'm just going from my doctorate from USC on this. So with that being said, let's say, how do companies make money on marijuana? Well, of course, they'll grow it and then they'll sell it for a profit. Well, keep in mind, the tax man cometh with that. Governor Pritzker likes him some marijuana taxes. So with that, let's say that after a few months, after the the novelty wears off of going down to my local pot shop and buying marijuana legally. By gosh, I feel like a true American now. Once that novelty wears off, and I realize, you know what, I can go back to my old buddy, the drug dealer, who I got my marijuana from up till January 1st for about a third the price. I'm still going to go to him and buy my marijuana from him. Why would I need to go to the legal pot shop? And with that being said, let's say I have my legal allotted amount in the car. How is a cop going to determine whether or not it was bought from a pot shop or whether it was bought from my buddy, the drug dealer? Is there a way? I don't believe there's going to be a way to have the certified pot versus the non-certified pot. So my point is that I think the same people that were dealing drugs in the past, I think it's going to be a great time for them because of the fact that now it's going to be a little bit more legal and they're going to have a little bit more business now because of this. So from the standpoint of recreational use, I don't think it's a good idea for that reason. Now, here is where I think it actually could possibly have some merit. I actually went to a presentation once. It was with a retired NFL players thing that I go to. And they had someone come in here to talk about pain. Because, well, a lot of guys in that room are suffering from a lot of pain from playing football for so many years. And so they brought someone in to just talk about the potential benefits of medical marijuana. One thing that they were saying is that there is a process that you can take the chemicals out of marijuana and use them just to kill pain, and it doesn't give you any effects of being high. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, quite honestly, but if something like that is actually true, and there's companies that do something along those lines, then it may be something that could be used as a potential drug stock, to where that's something that the local drug dealer is not going to be able to compete with. And that's something that the FDA could get involved in, and it's something that could make money in a way similar to how drugs make money. So that's my take on it. Do I think all marijuana companies are going to in time be bad? No. I think there will be a couple of them that'll rise to the top, just like America's leading radish distributor. But aside from that, I think it's a bad investment, folks, and that's my take.
There you go, Uncle Mike getting into rarefied territory. We got a few minutes here. Let's see if we can squeeze a few of you on with some of the old Thursday mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. Let's get rolling here. Looks like a lot of you have follow-ups from our last episode here. First off, Ali. Ali 17, says, can you please elaborate on these calls and or what you thought went on with today's trading? Thanks. So he's referring to what we talked about on our last episode, which was a whole week ago now, listeners. It seems like it's been forever. Blame the holiday here in the U.S. We were talking about calls in mRNA. These were July 25 calls. They went up for 265, about 5,000 times on the bid. This is Moderna. This was a Cambridge-based biotech company. If you want the full breakdown for him, Ali 17, I encourage you to go back to our last episode. We spent a full 10-plus minutes breaking them all down. But in general, what it was these were pretty meaty calls. They were July 25s going for $2.65. These are out-of-the-money calls, but they're pretty juicy. The stock's at about 22 right now. I don't remember exactly where it was a week ago. Let's go back and find out, shall we? A week ago, it was a wee bit lower, actually. It was trading in the low 20s. Now it's at 21.82, so it's had a bit of a run-up since then. So these July 25s, looks like they were sold near the bid, and we talked about a little bit opening on the Philly. We talked about all of our thoughts, what this is, what this means, and also we filed them in our to-be watch. So we'll be coming back to those. So I encourage you, Ali 17. Anyone else interested? Check out last week's episode for the full breakdown, and stay tuned. We'll come back to these probably before July to break down what happened there. Next up, another follow-up from last episode. This comes from Bill. Yeah, he's the guy who asked, if you guys remember, Mr. Rock Lobster and Uncle Mike, about this crazy special dividend in Norton LifeLock. They were paying a $12 dividend coming up soon. He asked if we can get to it before expiration. We obliged him, kind folks that we are, and pretty much told him, yeah, look for the circular on OCC, and they're probably going to adjust this thing. So it's not like there's free money. He wrote back in to say thank you I just finished listening to the explanation, and there went my free lunch idea. A good lesson learned. Regards, Bill. By the way, if you do look, and we did look right before the show, and there is a circular. I remember when you see something weird like this on a name, a corporate action's going on, you're trying to figure it out, you're stroking your chin, you're saying, what does this mean? Is this free money? Like maybe Bill and others. A lot of people, you weren't alone, Bill. A lot of people online were thinking that was free money in Norton LifeLock. Then go over to OCC, that's the Options Clearing Corp. They have a search bar there. Just type in the ticker symbol and see what you find. If you did that in Norton, you'd see as of a few days ago, this is from the 17th, they said exactly what we said was going to happen. There's going to be new symbols here reflecting this cash distribution from Norton LifeLock. The new symbol is going to be NLOK1. It was NLOK. And so NLOK changes to NLOK1. What is NLOK1? It's just Norton LifeLock plus $12. So there's going to be a new symbol, new option. So as we said, this is going to be adjusted. There is no, unfortunately, free money to be had here. So they're going to adjust this to take into account this kind of extraordinary dividend. And then you'll be all set. This goes into effect February 3rd. So keep an eye on that one. If you want to go and learn more for yourself, OCC is the place to go. All right, most of the rest of these are pretty long. We have to keep on rolling. So without further ado, let's keep on rolling into Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
Well, outside of coronavirus and massive quarantines going on, the macro world's kind of scary. So let's look micro here for what's coming up the rest of the week. We kind of touched on it at the top of the show here. A lot of earnings popping off this week. We had some airlines before the bell, Southwest and JetBlue. We also have American popping off today, as well as Intel after the bell. E-Trade. If you're intrigued by what impact these crazy mergers are going to have in the retail brokerage space, maybe keep an eye on E-Trade. Also have Discover, and tomorrow American Express. So still have some big names popping off here after the bell. Let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the Rock Lobster. Sir, what are you watching for the rest of this week into the weekend?
Well, I'm watching our sell-off that we had. We were down 2 handles, and that's the magic number, or 20 handles in SPX. Where all sell-off stop, and we go back to rallying because, after all, why should we sell off ever again? And believe me, I'm not a bearish person. I just usually there's some kind of pullback. So that was your opportunity today. And unless something awful happens, which I hope it does not, it's not going to surprise me for TOSAW to say his favorite saying on Monday. There's never been a better time to sell the top. So couple things. Can Tesla hold this crazy level? That's one thing I'm looking at. Can oil stop the swoon, which is pretty substantial? It looks like the major oil stocks have found a bottom. My own closet theory is everybody's selling their oil stocks for some reason because of all the headlines coming out of Davos. And once that stops, maybe they'll stop going down. I don't know. But those are like 2 areas I'm looking at. And just see what we have. But as of right now, vol futures are unchanged on the day or slightly down. And I think a lot of nothing is back on the plate until the big tech earnings come out, especially Apple. I think that's the next what I would call calendar market moving event.
Yeah, NASDAQ's back in the green, so it's already erased the red for the day and they're back in the green. S&P and Dow not quite there yet, but they're closing in, only off 0.1%, Dow off about 0.25%. So most of them have cut their sell-offs pretty much in half, and NASDAQ actually erasing it altogether. So, I guess global fears of a pandemic be damned. There's a rally to be had. All right, Uncle Mike, sir, same question for you. What are you watching for the rest of the week into the weekend?
I'm going to see if this pullback continues, this 1.5 day pullback where we have all-time highs and then the market comes off the all-time highs and it's considered a pullback. So this is a fun market, folks, but just keep in mind it won't last. Watching those numbers and, of course, watching the impeachment trials and everything else macro and trying to be bullish without having too much exposure on the table.
Yeah, we didn't even get around to the impeachment that all kicked off last week as well. A lot of fun things on the macro tape, and I put fun in air quotes because not so much. But that music, unfortunately, means we've come to the end of another epic journey. But if you're saying to yourself, I want some more, I need some more in my old air holes, got you covered. Listening live, you get some fun stuff in between. Maybe we'll talk about some Disney Iron Condors. How about that? Get excited for that. And then we'll be back in about exactly a half an hour to talk about all the stuff the Rock Lobster's just talking about. Crude, gold, probably some equities and some vol in there as well. A lot of other fun stuff. Join us on TWIFO in exactly a half an hour. Or just hit next on your device of choice, however you're listening to this now. And it should be up there ready to go for you. But before we go, let's go back around the horn, check in with each of my cohorts. Let's start with the land of the rockingest of lobsters. Mr. Rock Lobster, if I want to become a part of this webinar palooza that's going on over there in Option Pit right now, where should I go? What should I do?
I think you go to the Sharp Bets part of our website. I think today's the last day to sign up for it at the intro price. After that, it will be gone forever. Also, we're calling the Vol Trading Club now is getting a facelift and just helping people with the techniques on portfolio hedging and also just flat out trying to make money speculating with vol or vol products in a hedge way. So those things are here. They're alive. Look for more stuff coming out. And surf on over to optionpit.com. So
if I sign up for your newsletter, am I technically part of the Vol Club, or is that like a separate entry?
You are technically part of the Vol Club. It is now the Vol Trading Club. And we're still trying to think of what kind of cool hat to give people. That's the next.
So you got to have a sweet smoking jacket. Is there a secret handshake? No club is good without a secret handshake.
Yeah. It's something. I mean, or maybe a sweater with a crest on it. I don't know. We're thinking.
I'm liking it. Good stuff. Get yourself some access to the very secretive Vol Club. Learn the secret handshake. Maybe you get a sweet hat. OptionPit.com is the place to go. And Uncle Mike, sir, I don't know if you have a secret Uncle Mike club. Maybe that's cooking. But if I want to call you up, maybe to dispense my views on cannabis stocks or hedging or rolling puts or anything else, where should I go? What should I do, sir?
Go to stcharleswealth.com. The perfect person to call me is someone who has money to where you're at the all-time highs and you're scared to death of what to do with it because you think that you don't want to necessarily get out of everything right now. But on the flip side, you don't want to risk being in markets at these high levels. I can help. That's what I do. Contact me, stcharleswealth.com.
There you go. Hit the man up. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. And on behalf of the Rock Lobster and Uncle Mike and indeed myself, I thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for all the other fun stuff that you do. Keep it coming. If you're listening live, stay tuned. We'll be back in exactly half an hour. If you're listening after the fact, just hit next. Jump on over to TWIFO. Should be some fun stuff there. And we'll see you back in about half an hour for TWIFO. Otherwise, we'll see you back here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern for a little bit of volatility views. Then it's back again on Monday for more of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.